violence and other kind of violence.
Get away! I could be at work, at school, in my car, I can still get shot by the police, but I can get shot anywhere.
So it is what it is.
What's good, YouTube? It's the Black Gen Z Mindset. Make sure you go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's get into the video. So guys, this story comes straight out of Chicago. We have a drug dealer killed by rival after he was told not to sell on Marquette Park block, prosecutors say. Okay, and this happens a lot. This is depicted in a lot of movies, a lot of blaxploitation films where black men are depicted as gangsters, mobsters, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not an accurate representation in a lot of ways, but what I am saying is that this scenario is common, okay? Guys fighting over blocks they don't own, guys fighting over blocks that, you know, they have no equity in. This is the reality of the streets because for some reason they take ownership in the BS, okay? And I guess that's just like territorial stuff, and that's why you see hoods, they'll stand for like 20-30 years and then they'll get, you know, broken down or torn down because there's so many murders, and then it'll turn into like an apartment complex for senior citizens or something like that. This happens all the time, and it's unfortunate that we've got these young brothers who are out here doing what they doing, but they're self-proclaimed super gremlins. So that's pretty much what I'm going to use now. Shout out to Kodak Black. He dropped the song Super Gremlin, and I feel like it is apropos for the types of guys that are out here in these streets. So anyways, we're going to read this story. 3 days before Devontae Anderson was killed, Reginald McCoon made it clear to Anderson that he was no longer allowed to sell yayo on Marquette Park block, Cook County prosecutor said Wednesday. Anderson had just gotten into a fight with another drug dealer who was working with McCune in the 6300 block of South California Avenue when McCune told him he was no longer welcome there, prosecutors said. So, you know, some competition. He was trying to X out the competition, and that's what he did. 3 days later, on December 20th, McCune shot and killed Anderson, prosecutors said. About 3 p.m. that day, McCune, 37, stepped out of a corner store on the block after he received a call, prosecutors said. McCune was then captured on a surveillance camera while he crossed the street and walked toward 30-year-old Anderson, who was nearby, prosecutors said. Anderson quickly crossed the street and walked out of the camera's view, while another surveillance camera recorded McCune pull a gun from his pocket and begin firing, prosecutors said. A third surveillance camera captured McCune running into a nearby apartment building after the shooting, prosecutors said. Anderson was found shot in the back outside the corner store by Chicago. Police officers who had responded to a shot spotter alert said. 2 .45 caliber shell casings were recovered from where McCune fired the gun, but no weapon was recovered, prosecutors said. Police initially reported the shooting as a drive-by. Several witnesses identified McCune in a photo array and said that they saw him inside the corner store just before the shooting, prosecutors said. McCune also allegedly identified himself in a still photo taken from the business surveillance system after he was taken into custody Monday. An assistant public defender pointed out that no one had identified McCune as the shooter, and the prosecutors had not presented any forensic evidence linking McCune to the murder. McCune has previous convictions of armed robbery and attempted armed robbery, prosecutors said. McCune is the father of 11 children, and has worked steadily, most recently at a barber school, his defense attorney said. So this guy obviously is in the streets, you know, selling dope, doing what he does. Couple armed robbery, couple attempted robberies, and it's rare that these dudes who are doing kick doors actually resort to drug dealing. But like I said, once they get arrested for this, they're like, okay, maybe I'm not a good robber, so now I'm gonna sell dope. Maybe I'm not, you know, good at selling dope, so now I'm gonna be a killer. I'm gonna be an enforcer, okay? And he's probably killed before, honestly, and just didn't get caught. But the 11 children part stands out to me. And this is where I have to say, yo, this is where obviously what he did is his own thing, okay? He's being held accountable, and he needs to be held accountable for what he has done. But how in the world, and I don't know how many baby mamas he has, but how in the world is a woman going to allow a man with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not that, but 11 children impregnate her? That's crazy to me. And you know he's got multiple baby mamas. I just wonder how much. I don't know. But this is what's going on in the community. We have guys out here who are in the streets thugging it, who have the most children. They're getting the most WAP. And there he goes right here. Light-skinned brother. It looked like he got a Cleveland Browns Letterman on with the hoodie. But this guy has 11 kids. Now, you know, he's a handsome brother, but he ain't that handsome. You know what I mean? This is crazy.
This year is make or break. We've got to do a better job than what we did in 2021. No questions about it. No excuses. It's about accountability. It's making sure that our residents are safe.
The city of Chicago waits.
Y'all heard what she said. It's so hard to take her seriously because she admonished the police earlier. And it's just insane. Earlier last year, actually, she was dogging the police.
Wasting no time on a New Year's resolution to solve more murders. Today, the top cop announced plans to crack down on homicides.
Elizabeth Matthews live with the changes being made within the police force. Elizabeth.
Guys, the mayor says that public safety is both a long and short game, holding violent offenders accountable, it's cold, but also investing in communities. Also happening right now, more homicide detectives are coming to CPD.
But as leaders, we have to recognize we are nowhere near where we need to be. We are nowhere near where our residents want us to be, and we have to step up and do more.
2021 was a bloody year. 797 people killed, the highest in Chicago since the 1990s. To combat that, city leaders are laying out a layered public safety plan, which will add 200 homicide detectives.
We've already got 100 newly promoted detectives in detective school. We plan on promoting another 100 to get our detective ranks up to 1,300.
And we did the story on the Chicago officer who was killed by the couple, I guess. I hope they're hiring some guys who know what they're doing, because they're going to need more than 100 homicide detectives to stop what's going on
For the department.
Superintendent David Brown says they will expand pod cameras and license plate readers around expressways and retail corridors and work on public trust.
That's the linchpin to solving all crimes, perceptions of crime, perceptions of safety, and actual safety.
He says last year, officers made 500,000 positive community interactions, but he wants that number tripled this year.
But the thing is, guys, the problem is, even if the officers are arresting these criminals, they're being let back out on bond. All the violent criminals are being let out on bond, let out on supervised surveillance, ankle monitors, all types of stuff. So you might think that you're solving the problem by putting more cops on it, but it's just going to be, what's going to end up happening is it's just going to be more criminals who are let out on bond catching bodies.
year. Mayor Lori Lightfoot says she will continue to ask for federal support in battling illegal gun trafficking and demanding justice reform.
Last year alone, the Chicago Police Department arrested 133 individuals, many times with ankle bracelets on their ankles, who committed another murder, another shooting, another crime of violence. When is the criminal justice system in this county going to wake up?
Oh, wow. So she's saying the criminal justice system in the county needs to wake up. She's calling them out. I mean, finally, she's calling them out. I mean, if they would just arrest some of these guys and keep them in prison, then we'd be okay. But the narrative is, it's like the Democrats, they can't get it straight. The liberals, they can't get it straight because on one hand, they want criminal justice reform. They want to make sure that people are you know, getting out of jails and we don't have a huge prison population full of young black men who are innocent and they didn't do nothing and da-da-da-da. And then on the other hand, now she's saying, oh, well, we need them to stay in jail. Most of the people who are committing these murders were already arrested and let back out on the streets with ankle monitors. The contradictions are adding up.
CPD will also expand carjacking task force and focus more attention on officer wellness. Last year, CPD saw 76 officers shot at or shot. At Public Safety Headquarters, Elizabeth Matthews, Fox 32, Chicago.
Hi, good afternoon. During a press conference this morning, investigators here in Harvey say the man connected to 17-year-old Isaiah Davis's murder has a violent history of crime in his past.
Wait, are you serious? You think? So we've got a situation where a 17-year-old boy was killed and his body was set on fire. Kind of like what happened in Philadelphia, except it was a woman right by Frederick Douglass Elementary School. You know what I mean? Of all places.
Upon further investigations, detectives learned that Norwood was currently on parole for a charge relating to the robbery and murders of a 28-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 10-year-old, and attempted murder of a 4-year-old.
Wow. A 20-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 10-year-old, and attempted murder of a 4-year-old. And this man was out on parole. This is the criminal justice system is broken, but not in the ways that we think it is. If the criminal justice system was intact, fair, just, and upright, then we'd have more of these super gremlins in prison.
Detectives learned that Norwood was currently on parole for a charge relating to the robbery and murders of a 28-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 10-year-old, and attempted murder of a 4-year-old.
Harvey Deputy Chief Cameron Bidding says 34-year-old Fahim Norwood, who was on parole at the time of his arrest on December 31st, is now in Cook County Jail. Norwood has been charged in connection to 17-year-old Davis's murder. Investigators in the case say Davis's body was found burning in an alley in Harvey on October the 28th. A source tells us Davis was also shot.
Wow. Gruesome. That boy's 17 years old. And he could have been a street dude. He could not have been. Who knows? But the guy who did what he did, y'all seen his picture. He looked rough as a mug. Fahim Norwood. Fahim Norwood. Okay? He's one of these dudes who got one of those woke hotep names. You know what I mean? Jeez.
17-year-old Davis's murder. Investigators in the case say Davis's body was found burning in an alley in Harvey on October the 28th. A source tells us Davis was also shot.
I'm just happy that a man like Fahim is in custody and won't be able to hurt nobody else's child as he did to mine. I was able to meet with him and look him in his eye and I knew that it was him who hurt my son.
Wow. This woman looked the killer of her son in his eyes. Woo, there are a lot of things going on in Chicago. These super gremlins. It's like they're coming straight out of hell and tormenting those on earth.
Now, Davis's mom shared with us that her son went to Thornton High School and had aspirations of becoming a lawyer one day. Police also tell us that there is an active trial happening right now in connection to this case. Reporting live in Harvey, I'm Jewel Hillary, WGN News.
Suburban Harvey police releasing new details today on the investigation into the death of a 17-year-old. The body of Isaiah Davis was found on fire in an alley in October. Dane is live in Harvey, that is, with the latest developments on this story. Dane?
Yes, Sylvia, a community activist here says there's no way the man now accused of killing a 17-year-old boy should even have been out on the streets. This murder happening a little more than 2 months ago now. The body of 17-year-old Isaiah Davis was found on fire on October 28th in an alley here in Harvey. Last week, prosecutors charged 34-year-old Fahim Norwood with murdering Davis. According to a proffer read in court, Davis was killed at another location, and Norwood moved his body to Harvey before setting it on fire. Today, Harvey officials announced the charges, and we heard from Davis's mother, who says she actually met the man accused of killing her son while conducting her own investigation.
So we have the mother. Obviously, we heard from her before, but we have her out here conducting her own investigation, tracking the criminal down. I mean, what courage. She has a lot of courage to do what she did. A lot of courage to look the killer in the eyes. Takes a lot of guts. They say that her son wanted to be a lawyer, so I don't think he was in the streets. You know, we'll go with that. So, just a sad situation. We eat our brightest. We eat our most ambitious, the ones who have the most potential. They get swallowed up by the streets in the community. And they're getting swallowed up by these super gremlins.
I'm just happy that a man like Fahim is in custody and won't be able to hurt nobody else's child as he did to mine. I was able to meet with him and look him in his eye, and I knew that it was him who hurt my son, who actually killed my son.
Now, also here today was community activist Andrew Holmes, who says there's no way Norwood should have been out on the street. In fact, he says that Norwood has multiple convictions on his record, fairly recent convictions, and also has an acquittal from a triple homicide here in Harvey that happened in 2010, that acquittal coming in 2018. We're going to be continuing to work on this story through the afternoon. Live in Harvey, Dane Placco, Fox 32 Chicago. Sylvia, back to you.
The nation's third largest school district is closed for a second day because of a dispute over COVID-19 safety. City officials in Chicago and the teachers union are at odds over whether it's safe to continue in-person classes as Omicron cases surge in the city.
So this is not good news. Chicago public schools are closing indefinitely because of Omicron surges. Where do you think those kids are going to go? Because we know that a lot of these killers are very young. Where do you think they're going to go? Because they weren't going to class beforehand anyway. A lot of them. But now that it's mandatory that you don't go to class, what is going to be the motivating factor to get a kid from the hood onto a laptop that he probably doesn't even own, find Wi-Fi that he may not have at the crib, to get on his computer and do his schoolwork? Not much motivation. So, to the streets he goes to become nothing less than a super gremlin.
Earlier this week, 73% of teachers voted to stop reporting to work for in-person classes. Instead, they called for a transition to remote learning. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot expressed frustration with the union's decision.
Why are we here again when we know that the safest place for our children is in school?
She cannot afford for them kids to be out of school. She cannot afford for that to happen.
Why are we here again when we know that our schools are safe? We have put over $100 million of resources into our schools over the last 2 years.
For more on this, I want to bring in Dana Kozlov with our Chicago station, WBBM. And earlier this week, we had Education Secretary Miguel Cardona on CBSN. He said that he supports in-person classes and making sure school districts have what they need. Let's listen.
I do recognize there's a lot of fear and concern. Ultimately, I support in-person learning if it's safe. And I do believe we have the tools now to make in-person learning safe. I do believe that we need to continue to provide in-person learning because either we're helping address opportunity gaps.
I cannot stand these liberals. And hopefully this sparks a movement of more private schools, more schools taking autonomy and figuring it out themselves, because this government assigned school system, it ain't working. It is not working. It's not teaching the kids. They're passing them through without even having a grasp on the curriculum.
Or they're getting worse. So for me, there's a sense of urgency to use the tools that we have at our disposal.
Dana, thank you for joining us. Given the support from the Education Secretary and health officials and science showing it's safe, why is the teachers union refusing to teach in-person classes?
Well, frankly, Meg, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union says, well, that may be the case in other districts, but for the Chicago Public School District, they don't believe that is the case. They don't believe that the layered safety mitigations district-wide that are in place right now are providing enough protection from especially the variant right now. And so they are saying, our teachers want to make sure. I will say that before the break, which ended Monday, I have two children, two teenagers in the system, and there were already grumblings. They came home saying, our teachers are saying we're going to go remote for a couple of weeks after the break. And that didn't happen. The district doubled down and said, we're going to go back. So there'd already been talk within the rank and file and within union leadership that we should go remote. They should go remote. That didn't happen. They took the vote. They're saying this is all about safety, despite what others are saying. They don't have faith in the mayor and her layered safety mitigations district-wide. They say it's uneven. So they're citing safety. However, now that this vote has been taken, and you mentioned it was 73% of the teachers that voted, 20,000 of the 25,000 or so teachers voted, they are saying now what we want, is we want to talk safety specifics moving forward.
Gang violence and other kind of violence.
Get away! I could be at work, at school, in my car, and I can still get shot by the police. I can get shot anywhere.
So it is what it is.